Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Well, let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from a throwaway account and says, would it bother you if your husband did this? I'm asking here because my mother says I'm justified in feeling uncomfortable with this, and my younger sister says I'm not. For background information, I'm 35 female. My husband is 38 male. We've been married for 11 years. We have 2 sons. There's a young woman, 25 female, who rents an apartment down the street from our house. She and my husband knew each other from years ago because she used to be friends with my brother-in-law, who now lives in another state. He lost contact with almost everyone from his past, including his family for a while, but he's starting to turn his life around now. My husband kind of knew her when they were younger, but they didn't stay in contact or have any relationship with each other until last summer when she moved into her current apartment. She's a nice girl. Sometimes she helps watching our boys when our schedules or when something comes up. We always invite her over when we have parties or barbecues. She gets along well with everyone. The first thing that happened that bothered me, that could just be me overreacting, was one night she had come over to watch our sons when our normal babysitter pulled out last minute. She always refuses payment, so we bought her takeout from a local restaurant with the rest of us and she ate over. She had been swimming with the boys in our pool and at one point said something about being cold. I was going to tell her I would run upstairs and grab her one of my sweaters when my husband took off the hoodie he was wearing and gave it to her. It just made me feel uncomfortable for some reason, but again, I don't know if I'm overreacting or not. I talked to my husband and told him how it made me feel, and told him next time in a situation like that it was so much easier to go and get one of my sweaters. He did apologize, but it doesn't help that after he gave it to her she kept it for a few days. When she brought it back it smelled overwhelmingly like her. I asked him if he wanted me to wash it and he said no. As far as I know, it still hasn't been washed. Last night she came over for a graduation party for one of our sons, elementary school graduation. She got a phone call in the middle of it and left for about an hour. My husband went over to check on her and she came back but seemed really upset and said something was going on with her mum health-wise. I didn't get much more info than that because I was hosting the party. Later on, almost everyone had left. I was putting the boys to bed. The 2 of them were talking by the fire pit on the swing we have. She still seemed really upset and he had his arm around her shoulders and was clearly trying to cheer her up. None of that bothered me. What bothers me is that when I came back outside, they were both asleep on the swing with their head on him. I woke them up and they both seemed genuinely surprised and she got up, but they didn't seem as though they got caught or anything. I talked to my husband again about how it bothered me and he apologized but said that he was just trying to make her feel better. He says their relationship is completely platonic. I didn't have anything to feel uncomfortable about, and he asked if I would be upset if she was a cousin. I told him no, but she's not a cousin. He said okay and that he understood, but I don't know if he really does or was just tired and wanted the conversation to be over peacefully. My mother agreed that if she was in this situation she would be upset, but my sister thinks I'm overreacting and she'd be fine with this. But my sister also isn't married. I'm not completely sure if I'm overreacting or not, so I'm looking for some other perspectives. Now the first part of this with me about lending the jumper, I could see myself personally doing something like that, but I think at the same time I'd also be very conscious of my partner feeling like, hold up, that doesn't seem quite right. That might make me think about it or maybe speak to my partner and just saying, you know, you're cool with that sort of thing. But then it got to the part where the jumper came back and he didn't wash it and it made me feel uncomfortable. And then coming out to find them sort of his arm around her and later they're asleep together with her head on his. I think you have a right to feel uncomfortable in this situation. I certainly would. And I'd be saying to my partner, put yourself in my shoes, and I walk out to see, you know, my partner with someone else, you know, pretty much comforting each other and trying to put myself like in his shoes as well, and he's comforting her. I would be thinking about, if my partner sees this, they're going to think this is a bit weird, right? And the fact that he didn't even acknowledge it or anything like that and just seemed to just totally bypass it. It's just the whole thing's a bit strange to me. But Liv Mays says, Man here, that's too close for my comfort. If my wife were in that situation, I wouldn't be outraged, but I'd be like, let's not be falling asleep together with your head on his shoulder. It's fucking weird. I think you're in the right to feel uncomfortable. CKB says, I love that you've been communicating your feelings because that's so important, and a lot of people immediately try to bury it. Your feelings are always valid. It'd be a big no from me. The comfort level you have to fall asleep against each other after talking, not acceptable for a man and a single woman, at least in my opinion. He comforted her at your party now, but how long has she been seeking him out whenever she needs it? And where does it go from there? I'd ask for some hard boundaries, whether he feels it's excessive or not. It feels like a slippery slope. Then again, that's just me. No Name replies that saying also it's very unlikely that they fell asleep at exactly the same time. If he fell asleep first, then she continued to sit there until she fell asleep on his shoulder. Weird. If she fell asleep first, she either conked out instantly or she was resting her head there while he was awake and she was drifting. Also inappropriate. Not you, not I says, I think when people are married, unless there is a certain discussion or agreement had or made, both parties should know there is a boundary that should not be crossed with friends, specifically ones that are single. It opens doors to situations we hear lines are crossed. So I do understand where you are coming from and how you are feeling. The OP comes in with their first little update and says, hello everyone, thank you for all the words of advice and different perspectives on my situation. The unanimous consensus seemed to be to talk to my husband again and set boundaries. I'd sat down and had another talk with him. I told him I wasn't accusing him of anything and laid out exactly how everything had made me feel. He seemed genuinely sorry that I felt that way and said he was happy that I talked to him about it all and was open about it. But he said that he didn't understand. He said that if I was secure in our relationship and his loyalty and monogamy, and that if I had trusted her, he didn't understand why I was upset about these things. I tried to ask him if he'd feel like it wasn't a big deal if the roles were reversed, and it was a male friend who I was getting close to like that. He said if there was a male and he knew the feelings were completely platonic, he would be fine with it. But he said that he respected that I wasn't, and that he was going to be more aware around her. He said he didn't think it was fair to cut her out or stop inviting her over or having her watch the boys, and I did agree. I'm glad that he respected my boundaries and heard me out. I do wish he had understood where I was coming from a bit better though. Either way, thanks for the advice to talk to him again. I'm happy I was clear about how it made me feel, and he knows now. Next little update says, I wrote the above update and I was going to post it, but then we had a fight, which I think is worth bringing up here. There were so many people talking about the hoodie, so I went to go get it, and I washed it. When I was folding the laundry, my husband came in and saw that I had washed it, and definitely seemed a little annoyed. He kind of sighed, rolled his eyes, and shook his head. I didn't say anything though. Later on, he was putting everything away into his closet. He held up the hoodie and was like, I told you didn't have to wash it. If you're so sure I'm going to cheat on you, why does it matter what my hoodie smells like? And then he took it and threw it onto the floor of his closet instead of hanging it up with the rest of them. I told him I didn't think he was going to cheat on me, but I didn't like his clothing smelling overpoweringly like another woman. He said it hadn't smelled overpoweringly like her and she had just already washed it, so it smelled like a fabric softener. He said I was harping on about this and that I was behaving ridiculously, etc. I told him that all I had done was wash a hoodie, which was the same thing I would have done if one of our kids' clothes came back from a friend's house. Today, after he got dressed, his closet door was open and I saw the hoodie wasn't on the floor anymore, but it wasn't with his other sweatshirts either. I asked him where it was and he didn't answer. He just said really low to himself, "You've got to be kidding me, here we go again." I told him that I wasn't trying to start anything. It had been on the floor and now it wasn't, so if it needed to be cleaned again or ironed, I would. He turned around and told me to let go of the fucking hoodie. I'm not talking about it again. I was completely shocked because he never talked to me like that before, especially not in front of our kids. He didn't even apologize. He just left for work and slammed the door. I really didn't mean to make such a big deal about the hoodie. I kind of feel like he's making a big deal about me washing it, right? Damn, and OP's left us on a little cliffhanger there. And I guess, where is the hoodie now? Is it with her? Do you think more was going on in this situation? A lot of people seem to think so. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. and let's move on to another story. And our next story is an updated story that we've covered in the past, but now has a new update as a part of it as well. Before we do get into it, it does contain talk of sexual assault, harassment, and oppression. So if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. It's from Throwaway Wife Sister and says, my 37 male, wife's 34 female, sister 29 female, tried to kiss me, and now my wife is spiraling. Help me. Sorry for how long this is, TLDR at the bottom. As the title says, my wife's sister made a pass at me at a recent family gathering, and I have no idea what to do. For context, I think my wife Jenna is absolutely gorgeous, but she has some really negative body image issues. This is in large part because of her sister Mary, who is very conventionally attractive, as opposed to Jenna's more unconventional but, in my opinion, striking beauty. Mary was a successful model until a couple of years ago, and now works in the fashion industry. In our early days of dating, when I would tell Jenna she's beautiful, she would always say, just wait until you see my sister. When I did finally meet her family, she would randomly press me for weeks to talk about her sister, whether I thought she was more attractive than her, etc. I always told her the truth, that I think Mary is attractive in a boring way, and I think my wife is much more beautiful and interesting to look at. She would let it go until I confronted her about how uncomfortable it made me and asked her what was going on. This is when she told me that she always had a chip on her shoulder about her looks because of being compared with her sister growing up. They fell into the classic smart one, pretty one dynamic their whole lives. She also said Mary had a habit of being flirty with all of her exes and warned me that it would happen to me eventually. She then started sobbing and begging me not to cheat on her with her sister, to which I forcefully said I would never cheat on her with anyone, let alone her sister. I've been crazy about my wife since day one, and there's literally no woman on earth who would come close to her. I honestly didn't believe her about the flirting at first. I assumed it was just an extension of her insecurity, but I was wrong. Whenever we were together with my wife's family, Mary always finds ways to touch me and make little innuendos and comments about me or my body. It's super uncomfortable for everyone, especially my wife, and I've called her out on it before. She'd cool it for a while, but eventually start doing it again. It's been 6 years of this, and every time it happens, my wife is upset for days, and I have to do a lot of reassuring. On to the current problem. A few days ago, we're at my mother-in-law's birthday party, and Mary asked me to help her grab some things from the garage. As soon as we walked into the garage, she turned and pressed me up against the door with her whole body and started trying to kiss me. I immediately pushed her off and asked her what the fuck she was doing. She started giggling and saying she was just doing what we were both thinking and kept insisting, you know you want to. I told her she was out of her mind and ran out of there. I went straight to my wife and told her we were leaving. The whole ride home she was asking me what was wrong. I wasn't sure whether to tell her because I knew how much it was going to hurt, but I also thought Mary would probably try to spin it as me making a move on her. So I knew I just had to say it. I told her everything. She cried the whole way home. For the last several days, Mary's been calling and texting my wife doing exactly what I thought she would do. Even telling my wife that I said she, Mary, was the hottest girl I've ever seen. Which I had to assure my wife a million times that I did not and would never say, even though she believes my account of the situation. She's been a complete wreck the last several days. She's hardly eating. She pulls away from my touch when I try to hug her or just hold her hand. She says she feels hideous and disgusting, and I don't know what to do. This is the lowest I have ever seen her, and it hurts to see how much she's hurting. I have no idea what to do to help her heal from this. Reddit, what should I do? And we'll just cover the top comment with a reply from OP before we go to the update. So, Honest Illusion says, all family gatherings that include Mary must now be non-attendable. Your wife knows what an awful woman her sister is, and hopefully the rest of the family does too. To be honest, your wife's sister is evil. You have reassured your wife of your love and faithfulness. Your wife is incredibly insecure about herself, so obviously a professional may be in order for her and yourself to talk to. You love your wife, so stand by her and be there to support her. Opie says, my in-laws definitely enable her behavior. She's the golden child. They brag about her constantly, even though my wife is literally a neuroscientist. Their mum was a pageant queen and she was their dad's much younger trophy wife. Honestly, we may have to go no contact with all of them. So OP's next update says, I've got a few requests for updates, so here it is. I first want to thank everyone so much for your advice. It was extremely helpful and gave me a lot to think about. I'm especially thankful for the folks that asked me how I was doing. I realized that I have literally never had a chance to check in with myself after all these things happened. I've actually been holding a lot of frustration and resentment about it all. I've been harassed for years and it has either been brushed off or been eclipsed by the impact it had on my wife. I don't blame her for it, but it has been a good lesson in me not bearing my feelings for the sake of others, even for her. I also want to clarify a couple of things that came up. Several people asked how my wife's family feels about all this, and I explained in a comment that her parents are toxic and treat Mary as the golden child, even though my wife is a freaking neuroscientist, amazingly talented musician, speaks 3 languages fluently and another 2 conversationally. My wife and her family are seriously the only people who don't seem to understand how exceptional she is. I remember meeting one of my wife's family's friends and talking to them about her research, and they said, oh wow, her parents just told her she works at a university. Whereas my parents literally introduce her as the family genius to everyone. It makes me so fucking angry to think about how her arsehole family has stolen her shine her whole life. She's literally a Renaissance woman, but all they care about is looks and money. Some folks ask me why I would ever put myself in a situation alone with Mary given everything she's done. I have no good answers for that other than I never thought she would actually try to do anything. That possibility just didn't exist in my head. I realize now I should have seen this would happen eventually and that I should have been less concerned with keeping the peace and more concerned with shutting Mary's shit down before it escalated to this point. Hindsight is 2020. Anyway, onto the update. The night I posted, I told my wife that if she wanted to try to repair a relationship with her sister, I would respect that, but that I don't feel comfortable with being around her for the foreseeable future. I said Mary has obviously been deeply jealous of my wife her whole life because she is a hollow, ugly person whose entire value has an expiration date, while my wife actually has substance. I said that I think her whole family is toxic and has done nothing but put her down her whole life, but that only she can decide whether she still wants them in her life. I also told my wife that while I don't blame her for her emotional reaction, her insecurity is something that she needs to work on for our relationship to be healthy. What Mary did was sexual assault, and she's been sexually harassing me for years, but I have consistently put aside my own feelings about this problem because of how it affects her, and that has prevented me getting the support that I needed too. I told her that her reaction only serves to punish herself and me for her sister's behavior, and there's no reason to give her that kind of power. I also told her something that a commenter said that really resonated with me. The only people who have ever considered her second best are her and her family. Everyone else sees her for who she really is. She was crying the whole time and agreed that she needed to go to therapy to work on her insecurity. We were able to find a therapist who specializes in body image and self-esteem issues to work with her individually, and we're looking for a couples therapist too. My wife sent a message to her parents and sister that explained exactly what happened and told them she would reach out to them if she ever feels ready to repair their relationship. We blocked all of them everywhere, but Mary has of course been spamming my family and our friends with nonsense, claiming I attacked her, I'm a drug addict, I abuse my wife, all kinds of bullshit that thankfully nobody believes. My wife is still down in the dumps, but I can see that things are getting a little better. She's eating and sleeping more, and she's cuddling with me in the mornings again, which is nice. Now I'm planning a surprise getaway for us this weekend. We're going to one of our favorite places, and I'm going to wine and dine her to try and make her feel like the goddamn queen she is. I want to thank you all again for your help. You really helped me understand the severity of the problem, and again, thanks for helping me connect with my own feelings about all this. You all are the best. And I can remember feeling some relief last time. We have another update, by the way, but I can remember feeling some relief last time, and this time still reading it, like from the first post that OP told the wife right away about what happened. Because clearly in this update, the sister has no limits in how far that she's going to go, spreading rumors about you being abusive, a drug addict, and all this kind of thing. She will try to fuck your life up. And I'm also glad that the comments in the previous post got OP to recognize their own feelings and their mistreatment and that they were sexually abused and all this kind of stuff as well. But the top comment on that one was, "You're an absolute legend. She's found herself another genius who knows how to navigate life without infantile drama. I'm wishing you both nothing but the absolute best. Opie says the only genius thing I've ever done is marry her. I'm a pretty average dude to be honest, so I have no idea how I snagged her. I had to think her low self-esteem probably played a part, but I do work hard to be a good husband every day. The OP's final update says, so I guess my original post got reposted on TikTok and some other subs on here on subreddit, so I've been getting tons of messages asking for updates. It feels like things are mostly settled, and I'm really hoping this will be my final update. First, I want to say that I've gotten so many questions about who Mary is, and I'm just not going to say. Suffice it to say that she's never been a household name famous, but she's made a living solely on modeling for about a decade from what I understand. So she must have been popular enough that fashion people might know her. I really don't know how that whole world works, but in my opinion, it doesn't matter how many names you drop. You're not famous if you don't have a Wikipedia page. Also got lots of comments that mostly jokingly called me a simp. And I can't argue with that. I totally am a simp for my wife. She's the coolest. Hope you all find love that makes you feel this way. Okay, I think that's it. Here is the actual update. My wife loves the getaway weekend. We had a blast, and by the end of it she said she felt like herself again. For a few days after we got back, things were really quiet. So we were hopeful that Mary had finally given up, but I felt uneasy about it all. Many of you warned me that Mary would try to interfere with my work, and while I initially dismissed it, I figured I would reach out to my boss just in case. I've been working at the same company for almost 10 years, and she's heard me vent about Mary before, so I didn't have to explain too much. My boss just reassured me that she knows my real character and would let me know if Mary tried anything. As you predicted, Mary did try to contact my boss a couple of days later, and the following is a recounting of what my boss told me. Apparently Mary said that I needed to be fired because I was a predator and claimed to have proof that I assaulted her. My boss said that was a very serious accusation to make and asked Mary to explain what proof she had. Mary claimed there was a camera that caught the whole incident, and my boss asked her to send the video. Then Mary got flustered and said the police had it, so my boss asked her to send over a copy of the police report. Then Mary said it had a lot of private information in it, so my boss asked her to redact the private information and send it over. Then Mary said she didn't feel comfortable with that. My boss told her that she could not take action against an employee based on the word of mouth from a stranger. Then Mary shouted about her victim blaming and hung up. Unfortunately, that was not the end of it. Last Wednesday, Mary somehow sent an email from my personal email account with a dick pic. Not mine, obviously, to the entire office. My best guess is that I must have left my email logged in one of my in-laws' devices. She's definitely not smart enough to actually hack me, and I know this is completely besides the point. But of course, she chose the weirdest looking dick I've ever seen. I played team sports all my life, I've seen a lot of dicks, and this was something else. It's honestly kind of funny to think about Mary googling gross penis or something and sifting through hundreds of images to find just the right one. I had to apologize to everyone on staff, and thankfully folks were surprisingly understanding. It's actually been kind of a nice bonding experience with my co-workers. I honestly didn't consider myself to be super well liked in the office, but it feels like everyone has been going out of their way to just be kind to me, and it means a lot. At this point, it was clear we had to escalate things legally. I really wanted to avoid it, but she forced my hand. My wife and I have a lawyer friend who helped us draft a cease and desist letter outlining her continued harassment and the material and emotional damage this is causing us. My wife then sent a message to Mary and my in-laws with a copy of the letter and made it very clear that we'd pursue criminal or civil proceedings if her harassment continued. My wife's mum then called her crying and begged her to just let it go and leave Mary alone. My wife calmly explained that Mary is the only person responsible for this whole situation and that their parents have always enabled her awful behavior. She also said something she later regretted but I think was pretty badass. Mary is going to stick you two in a nursing home and steal your money the minute she has the chance, and you deserve it. After the way her mum reacted, my wife is firmly settled on cutting off her family completely. This happened on Friday. And on Sunday, Mary's best frenemy, Anne, sent my brother a message on Facebook to say Mary is going to leave us alone and please not sue her. I told my brother not to respond. And then I just sat and enjoyed the idea that Mary was out there somewhere freaking out about the potential of having to actually face the consequences of her actions. It must be a strange feeling for her. Since then, we haven't heard a peep from the grapevine. It feels like things are finally starting to go back to normal. My wife is starting therapy next week and will be starting couples therapy in a month or two. She wants to do some work on herself first. She's also taken a short leave from work to rest and recharge. I'm so proud of her for standing up for herself with her family and finally putting her mental health and well-being first. Thanks again for everyone who offered advice. This was a messy situation, but it definitely would have been messier without your help. And I said the last one was a final update, but this is the final update. I forgot about this account completely until today and logged in to see so many comments and messages asking for an update. It's honestly touching to see how many people care about the situation and want the best for me and my wife. This will be a brief update. I don't want to make this a regular thing, and the original situation is resolved enough that I am hopeful this will be the end of the saga. Mary and my in-laws have pretty much left us alone. My mother-in-law still tries to contact my wife every now and then, but she's made it clear to her family that if the first words out of their mouth aren't "I'm sorry," she isn't interested in a conversation. As you can see, the past 6 months have made my wife a badass. She has done some amazing work in therapy and her confidence is growing all the time. It's not just with her family. She's more comfortable asserting herself at work, with strangers, with friends, etc. She's even stopped putting up with some of my shit. To be fair, that shit is stuff like leaving my socks everywhere around the house, but I'm seriously proud of her for telling me to cut it out. I'm becoming a more responsible and supportive partner because she's able to communicate her needs and expectations without feeling guilty about it. And I'm able to communicate things to her without intense emotions fully eclipsing the conversation. I didn't mention this in my earlier post, but my wife does struggle with rejection sensitivity, even outside of her family. Often if I brought up something that I felt needed to change, her emotional reaction to feeling like she did something wrong would be really intense. Instead of dealing with the problem, it'd become about regulating her emotions. Now my wife has really good coping tools that allow her to talk about the problem without thinking she is the problem. And the biggest update? She's pregnant. We have a baby girl due in February. I'm shitting my pants with excitement. We are going to love her so much and teach her that she is more than her beauty. She's going to have happy parents who love each other and work through issues as a team. The toxic cycle will be broken. Jenna's family doesn't know, and she's not sure if and when she'll tell them. But if she does, there are going to be strong boundaries in place for how they can be a part of our daughter's life. And it'll start with family therapy. For now, she has one set of grandparents that will go to the end of the earth for her, and that's more than enough. My family has been absolutely incredible in their support, and they're so excited for us. Things are looking better than they ever have. That's all, folks. Thanks again for your support on this wild journey. And the top comment on that one simply said, "I love how you are simping, aka supporting your wife. You're an adorable couple. Congratulations on the pregnancy. Keep on with being an awesome supporting husband." And I'm incredibly happy that things have turned out the way they have. Congratulations on the pregnancy, by the way. I hope everything goes as well as it can. There's a slight part of me, and I don't want to bring it down at all, but there's a slight part of me that does worry that when sister does find out, when grandparents do find out, that they're going to try and shoehorn their way back into your lives, especially Mary, that she might try some weird shit. We've already seen the levels that she will go to. My only advice is be aware of that, of course, but it sounds like you're doing wonderful up until this moment. Like you say, your wife has become some kind of badass, and I'm all for that. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. Never forget that. You are absolutely amazing. And don't forget, at the very end, there'll be a couple of playlists there you can click on, and it will automatically scroll through all the videos for you, so you can just chill out and do what you were doing. Don't forget to let me know what you're up to as well over at @MarkNarrations over on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.